Let's bring in Gregg Jarrett, Fox News legal analyst. You know, Greg, as our viewers watch this press conference, it's pretty clear they may not understand this. I know you do. But our courts and our legislators go to great lengths to protect defendants. And this is one of those protections in Idaho where law enforcement is prohibited from giving us information as to how they cracked the case, what evidence is actually in the affidavit, the probable cause statement that led to this arrest. But what I found fascinating was when James Fry, the Moscow chief of police, said that their work is not done. And I don't know if that means the investigation is not done, or is there other defendants out there that have not been apprehended yet?
Yeah, I think more evidence is better. They clearly have enough evidence to go to a judge for probable cause arrest and search warrants. It had to be something substantial, but they still want more. For example, they're really pleading with the public. Now that this guy has been identified and apprehended, what they're really asking is for any of his family, friends, acquaintances, colleagues to step forward. Tell us if you witnessed any strange behavior. Did he make any sort of incriminating statements that you thought were either directly incriminating or rather odd under the circumstances? Was he dumping trash bags that might have contained some incriminating evidence? Was he washing a lot of clothes, for example? And Sean, you know this because you spent almost a decade as the elected district attorney up in Wisconsin. So, you always keep working the case, and now they have 3 additional crime scenes beyond the murder scene. They've got his apartment in Washington State. They're going to be going through that, searching for evidence. They're going to go through the location where he was apprehended in Pennsylvania. They're going to seize all of his computers and devices. They're going to seize all his clothing and shoes and so forth. But importantly, they've got apparently this Hyundai Elantra, same model as was spotted near the scene of the murders at the time of the murders. They're going to go through that, take it apart, looking for blood evidence. Whoever killed these individuals would have been covered with their blood getting inside the car to get away. That blood would be there, even if it was washed down. They'll use luminol spray, a chemical, which can detect blood diluted up to 10,000 times. So, you may think you're so smart and you wipe down the vehicle, but that blood is still there. The luminol may find it. It could be in cracks and crevices. I well remember covering the O.J. Simpson case, and that was certainly the case in that vehicle.
Greg, we don't know if there was DNA evidence in this case. We don't know if there was fingerprints here. But your point is well taken that the one common theme that law enforcement had talked about was that white Hyundai. And that white Hyundai was located at this residence. And I wonder what connection that has. Was that a big part of the case or not? And I also wonder, Greg, it appeared that the victims had defensive wounds, which means that this defendant may have actually been cut as he assaulted the victims. He could have been a crime scene himself. He could have been taking pictures of, his body as he came into custody because he had certain cuts on his physique.
Yeah, it's been more than a month. It's been about 6 weeks. So whatever wounds he may have had would have healed. But you might still see some scars. In the O.J. Simpson case, of course, when he, in my judgment, murdered 2 people but got away with it, he had slices on his hand. That often happens, especially if you have victims who are fighting back. There were defensive wounds. He may have accidentally cut himself. And so I certainly think they would have been looking at his person for any evidence of healed wounds. So, it's a point I was thinking about. It's a great point you're making.
And Greg, this is the oddest thing that we've learned today is that this defendant was a PhD student studying criminology and criminal justice. Yeah. So he was in the system getting a PhD in the very kind of investigations that were used to nab him in this horrific murder. What does this mean to you?
Well, it's curious, isn't it, Sean? I am reminded of the infamous Leopold and Loeb case, 1924. 2 young men thought they were so brilliant, they challenged themselves. We can get away with a perfect crime. They kidnapped and murdered 14-year-old Bobby Franks. This became known as the crime of the century back then. There was a media frenzy covering it. They eventually got caught, actually pretty quickly got caught. They didn't commit the perfect crime. But there are some people who think they can do this sort of thing. And this is a guy schooled in criminal justice, criminology. You know, he may know a great deal about forensics and thought he could get away with it. I would love to know what the motive is. They'll be looking for where his life intersected with the 4 victims in this particular case. And again, computer evidence, was he a stalker? Did he have some sort of acquaintance relationship with one of them, rejected, became angry, decided that I'm going to go out and commit the perfect crime? So, you know, a lot to be told. We're going to find out when he sets foot in Idaho and the affidavit in support of the probable cause warrant is released to the media. Then we're going to find out some important details.
You know, Greg, it's so often, I saw this as a prosecutor myself, the arrogance that these defendants have. Oftentimes they think they are so much smarter than law enforcement. In this case, that may not be true. Gregg Jarrett, always so smart on the legal side of these issues and cases. Thanks for joining me.